So in this video, I'm going to be walking you through one of the apps that I built, and this app is called Earthquake Alert. And basically, this app uses the USGS, the US Geological Survey API, and it pulls in live earthquakes around the world. And basically, there's a feature where right here on the left-hand side, we have a feed that is dynamically pulling in earthquakes of all different sorts of magnitudes. We have the location and the timestamp, date and time UTC format, which I had to convert right here in this feed here. And we have a little timestamp here. Another feature that I'm working on down the road is to make this actually change live. So you'll see the time, incrementing up. Here we have a map. I'll get into that. And at the bottom here we have a graph, a line graph at the moment, soon to also have a pie graph. Anyways, this line graph shows the magnitude of the earthquake, the current magnitude over the time, which is the increment is the last 2 days. So we're gonna walk through the functionality of the app first, and then we'll walk through some of the code right after. Okay, so let's begin. So this app is built in React and Redux, and it also uses D3, the visualization library, for building beautiful visualizations in JavaScript. And I should put out a disclaimer, should mention that this app is in progress. I work full-time, so I really don't have the amount of time that I would love to put into this. I really just do it on like the weekends. So a lot of the features that are not here are on the drawing board and will be implemented soon. So okay, here we go. So we'll start from the top. We'll reload it, and we'll see CSS animations going on, just so get a little good user experience in. So as soon as you load, as soon as the app loads, we have these are clickable, so you click on it and you can see behind the overlay over here the map changes. The reason I have the overlay is so it can be scrollable. So you can either click on it, or on the overlay that is, or you can just hit the M key, and I'm going to hit the M key just to demonstrate, and now you have access to the map. So whenever you click on one of these, it uses the leaflet map here, and basically what it does is it shoots up the location, the object really, to the Redux store, and basically this component here, which is a feed component, communicates on top with the Redux store, and the Redux store basically communicates back those coordinates down to the leaflet map. And on each one of these dynamic list items, we have an event listener that on click shoots up that data to the Redux store and pushes it down. So this is the beauty of Redux. It makes it seamless to communicate between components. You really don't need props. So that's like the beauty of Redux. It really you really don't need props, because now you're communicating with a global store, a global container that handles all your app data, and you can use a provider to basically wrap the whole app tree, and so now every component has access to the Redux store data. So coming down, we have a graph, excuse me. So at the moment it defaults to the magnitude 3, so you start from magnitude 3 to 4, so you have everything in between. And this is a timestamp. I know I need to work on the CSS. I need to push these down. I just haven't got around to it yet. Like I said, I work full time, and it's rough. So anyway, so you click on one of these, and now the graph changes dynamically. Magnitude 5. Okay. Now you're gonna laugh. I put a JavaScript alert box for something that there's nothing in the array yet. So yes, I will come up with a modal, something more user friendly, which will default back to the magnitude 3. So that's basically the core functionality of the app. The features that I'm working on at the moment are I'm going to have 3 stat boxes here, and basically those statistic boxes will give this whole component here, which is a component by itself. This will give it a more dashboardy feel. So we'll have 3 stats here, which will be the total number of earthquakes in the last 2 days. Another box will say the total number of the total magnitude, the total earthquake, excuse me, of the selected magnitude. So basically, if you click on 4, you'll have the number change here to say how many ever earthquakes there are for magnitude 4. And same goes for magnitude 5 and so on. And the third box will be, I don't have my diagram in front of me at the moment, but there will be another box that will have a third statistic that will change dynamically as well. And I will update that in the next video, I promise. So moving on, let's talk about the code. I'll take you into a deep dive into the code. So we have our CSS here on the side, but basically here is our app structure, and we have some Bower components. I use Bower to basically get some D3 in. Initially starting with D3 and React. I'm using the Create React app, was a little bit of a pain, so I used Bower for that. So let's jump into the code, and we have our front end here, and we have our Redux. So inside the front end, we have a components, images, services, and styles. Don't worry about the services at the moment. This is more for a login feature that I'm working on, and that's on the drawing board, but coming soon. We have our styles, one style sheet. I'm not using Sass just because I didn't want to overcomplicate it. Being that this is a one-man show, it's really not that important at the moment. My core focus is to get the functionality and the user experience right, and we can always transfer that over later. So inside the Redux config, we have our actions, our reducers, and the store. Okay, and then we go back up to front end. So let's dive into the components. We have the control dashboard, which is this component over here. Then we have the feed, which is, of course, this feed over here. Going back, we have the map, the nav bar, sign-in feature, which is I mentioned on the drawing board, and time now. Time now is, I mentioned this feature here, this component I should say. So if we dive into the feed, so we have our feed. Oh, what happened there? Thank you, Sublime. Okay, so we have our Quake feed, and yes, so bear with me one moment. Okay, so there's a lot going on here. We have our main feed component here, which basically has current earthquakes, and we have a list of the quakes. So we have our initial state, and basically, I won't walk you through every line. Basically, what this is doing on a component mount, what's happening is we're getting some data from down here. So basically here we have, inside component mount, we have a function that is doing our fetch call. So this is our API, and we have some plugin variables here, which we get from up here. And basically what this is it's plugging in the year, month, and day. I have some error handling for yesterday and that sort of thing, but I didn't get too in detail because I just wanted to get the app up and running. I'm going to have some more detailed computations for leap year and weekends and a 30-day month versus a 31-day month. This way, we have the proper previous day. So this is just computing the time, and then basically we have some parsing going on here that converts the month into a numeric value, and it's being parsed down here. So basically we have our fetch call, and then we're parsing that into proper JSON, and then based on our JSON we're dispatching some information to the Redux store. And yeah, so this is, here we go. I wrote this code a couple of months ago, so I can't even really decipher what I wrote here, but that feeling. And so here we go. And this feature here, this part here, basically what it does is it refreshes, it sends a new fetch request every 5 minutes in order to update our feed component. This way we're not just sending one fetch request and then we're not just getting the information once, where we're repeating it every 5 minutes. So every 5 minutes we have a new fetch call that goes out and we have a brand new set of quakes. I could technically make that 6 hours or whatever, but I figured 5 minutes is a good increment for right now. Okay, and down here, basically we have our fetch call props that is being injected into the feed table, which is this component here. And if it loads, then it loads, the actual list. Otherwise, we have a loading box that shows up here. And this is just a regular ternary operator. Okay, and now we go to the feed table. And what this component here does is it communicates between the actual feed table and the map here. So as soon as you click on one of these, it plots the pin onto the leaflet map. Okay, and then basically what we have is down here we have our constructor going down. We have a table that's being generated. Okay, and basically this function here basically handles the latitude and the longitude, and we're getting all this from our Redux store. Okay, and I'll put a link up to the GitHub that you guys can see the actual code, because walking through the code is, it can be a little confusing after like months or weeks of writing it. And basically here we have our table that's being generated automatically, dynamically I should say. Okay, so that's the feed component. Now let's jump into the graph. Okay, we have, wrong file. So we have the line chart, and then let's go into line chart, which is being rendered inside the graph. Okay. Now over here, this is probably one of the most complicated files, I should say. We have a lot of code here. Basically, what this code here handles is it basically handles rendering the line graph and then changing it dynamically based on click. So initially we have two functions. We have a line chart component, and then inside the line chart component we have a component did mount, and then inside component did mount we have two methods called draw chart and change graph. So let me try to walk you through this line by line. So basically, parse quakes is basically getting all the information, all the earthquakes from the Redux store. So here we have all the quakes that are happening, and remember we dumped those from our feed component up to the Redux store, and now down here we're getting them back from the Redux store. And basically we're looping over them, and we're setting the state of where we have a quake array initial state here, and we're basically just using that, basically pushing everything from parse quakes into that array just so that we can work with it. We can isolate the data to the component state. And then down here we have this function here that it's a filter function. That this function here basically takes the parse quakes and it filters them out into whatever magnitude that is clicked on. So not only the well, that's actually happening on the bottom. this here is basically taking, um, yeah, I guess so. It's basically filtering out our earthquakes into whatever magnitude that we pass in, and we're going to pass this the result of the return value of this function into as a parameter into the mag parse function. And basically we see that down here. So mag parse, so we're passing that in into this mag parse function, and basically we come down here, and now we're doing all these computations, and now we're setting our date time of and the magnitude, and then we're basically creating an object, right, with the magnitude and the time that our D3 library can use to decipher and make the line graph. So if we move down here, basically we have this draw chart function that does all the D3 work, that does all the D3 legwork, and basically we're invoking that function inside our mag parse, and we're passing in the result of our mag parse. So we pass in the mag x, which is this filtered data here. We're passing it in as Quake Mag, and then we're doing all the computations based on that. So we have our draw chart function here, and then we're just creating just a regular line graph, right? And then we're setting our attributes, our width, height, and then we're taking our parsed quakes, and we're formatting the data properly for the magnitude and the time. We're setting the ranges for our x and y axis, excuse me, and then after that we're basically looping over it and just formatting it, formatting the time to milliseconds, so our D3 can actually decipher the time instead of saying, whatever, 5/3/2019 or something like that, just a string basically, right? We want to have passed in milliseconds so that our D3 library can basically decipher all the information. And here we're setting our domain for the x and the y axis. And down here we're just appending a path, a group, and we're setting all these attributes for the x-axis, and then here for the y-axis. And now this part here does the button click handling. So it basically just does everything up above on click. Now I know you're wondering that, why couldn't this one function handle everything, right? Why couldn't this draw chart function, handle not only the default rendering but also the event handling? And that is because that we could not inject an event handler inside. So here we have a function that's basically doing the same thing, and we're taking this line chart function basically, and line chart component, and then just calling it inside our main graph. Okay, so that in a nutshell is the line graph. Now the map section here, which is Quake Map, this section here, basically we have, on component mount, we're getting our latitude and longitude, we're getting our most recent earthquakes, and we're setting it to our component latitude and longitude. We have an initial state, and basically we're setting that to whatever dynamic, and this I just put this here for just to get an initial state. This could be 0 for all you care. And what's really happening is when the map component loads, it's taking our latitude and the longitude of the very first element in the feed, which would be this, and we're setting that as a latitude and the longitude, and then we're invoking this change location function up here. So our change location function, it basically handles all of this, changing the location based on whatever you click on. Okay, and we have data attributes in the back end. So if we just inspect this real quick, just to see what's going on behind the scenes, for each let me just minimize that for you. Okay, so let's say click on this one here. So here we have this this table row. I said list item before. It's actually a table row. So this is a dynamic table row, and basically we have three table datas elements inside this feed, and we have data location, we have data latitude, and we have data longitude for each one. And basically, when you click on one of these, what it does is it shoots the values of those data attributes as latitude and longitude. Okay, and we see that here. Da, 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 da. And some more handling here. And here we have our leaflet map. Okay, so that's that. And then in the map, so that's the map section in a nutshell. And then we have our sign-in page, which is in the works. And yeah, we have our Redux here. So let me just close out of this. So we have our actions, reducers, and our store. So this is our store. Okay, this is standard store. We have one reducer, one root reducer, and inside our actions, we have nothing. I don't know why I opened that. So these are all our reducers, all our action creators, basically, and these just basically handle different, different events, different scenarios, and they all basically return the same thing. Very, very simple app. More to come, more optimizations to come. I'm sure I'll be making more videos on this, but yeah. And in a nutshell, this is the app. Future features that are on the drawing table are filters. So basically filter features so that we can filter by magnitude, by time, descending, ascending. And also we're going to have a pie chart. So this is going to be a half C or three. I'm using the Bootstrap Grid here. This is actually just an 8 and a 4 at the moment, or it might be a 12 column, but eventually it's going to be an 8 and a 4. Here in this right hand corner, we're going to have a pie chart, and that's going to show some more dynamic data. And basically, my aim is to try and study the impact of the magnitudes that are happening at certain locations. And what I mean by that is my aim is to study the effect of the earthquake magnitude based on the location's population. So for example, let's go up here, right? So in Pecos, Texas, we have a magnitude 3 earthquake. And basically what we'll study is the magnitude of that versus the population at that certain area. So we're going to have to use some kind of API that shows us the population of this particular area, whatever area that is, and it compares it to the magnitude. And then we'll have to do some sort of study, and we'll demonstrate all this data in a pie chart. And yeah, it's going to be great. So stay tuned. A lot more features to come. The next feature is going to be, like I said, these 3 stat boxes that will go in this section here. And then we're going to have a pie chart over here that's going to show our study, and a lot more cool features to come. Hopefully I have more time to work on this. Eventually my goal is to convert this into a mobile app. Right now it's barely responsive just because I haven't focused on it at the moment, but eventually all this will stack. Right now it's very basic. I use Bootstrap, but it's going to be a lot more native. It's going to have a more native feel, and it'll come with service workers, so with proper caching and networking, and you'll be able to have the access to push notifications. But that's gonna it's gonna be a lot of fun to build, and I look forward to sharing my journey of this app with y'all. But if you have any kind of suggestions or comments or questions, just yeah, please feel free to reach out to me. And yeah, also I should mention, I never showed you the index file here. So this is where our whole app is being rendered. So this is our index file, and in the index file we have our basic key press events for the map, or disabling the overlay, etc., etc., and some coordinate changing. And over here we have the basic structure. We're using the Bootstrap 4 classes, container fluid, and then we have different padding and margin. We're rendering our nav bar here, our time now, this little section here that shows the little title label here. We have our Quake feed, we have our Quake Map, and we have our map here. We have our control dashboard and our main line graph. So, and then down here we have our provider that's basically wrapping the whole index component, which is the entire app. And what this provider component does, for those of you who don't have much experience with Redux, is basically this provider wraps the entire app. It gives every component the access to the Redux store. So now the entire app tree has access to the store, and we're just passing in our store. So it's going from top to bottom. So basically you have two components, basically communicating all the app data, all the store data, I should say. But yeah, in a nutshell, this is the structure here. I'll walk you through the basic functionality and the features of the app. I'll walk you through some of the code, half of it which I couldn't even remember what it does because it was like months ago that I wrote it. But yeah, more to come, and please stay tuned. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks. Bye.